July the 9th at our planning session, Mobile County Commission. Dina, do we have any speakers?
Yes, Commissioner, we have Greg Logan to speak quiet.
Okay. Good, was it Greg?
Yes.
Okay, Greg, could we get you to come down? You can use this one or the one up top, either one you feel comfortable with, I think. Well, let's see if it works.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Does that work?
I don't know if it does or not, but we'll go
But
with
you
it.
can hear me
I
anyway.
can hear
Yeah,
you.
we can hear you.
Okay, I'm here representing Ceasefire, a telecommunications company that's been in existence in Mississippi for about 60 years through subsidiaries. Been in the wireless business, actually the 6th largest wireless company in North America, the largest privately held wireless company in North America. Our roots are in telecommunications. However, we started our history in small independent telephone companies scattered around Mississippi, from the Mississippi Delta into northeast Mississippi and southeast Mississippi, southwest Mississippi, all around the state. Got into the wireless business in the late 80s and have grown from there. Started building our own fiber optic networks at first to primarily serve those wireless sites, and then naturally evolved into providing services to businesses, and now providing services to home. We've started now in Alabama with plans to provide those home services. Around the Birmingham area, we just got an agreement in Tuscaloosa a week or so ago, and down here and Ceasefire's been in the wireless business for a good number of years, probably more than 15 years, in the Mobile area, Mobile County, Baldwin County, on over into western Florida. We have some fiber optic network here now, and I'm here to tell you about our plans for expanding that fiber optic network. We actually take the fiber all the way to the home in the case of the residential service, providing 1 gigabit of internet service. We provide home telephone service, and then we of course provide as well a traditional all digital television service. Hence the need for franchise. It's required under federal law that we get a franchise to provide video. We have to get that from every political subdivision that we plan to do that in, and that's the reason for our application today. There are franchise fees that would be remitted to the county under that agreement. I think those proposed fees right now are maximum allowed under federal law for the television service. And you know, that's the reason I'm here, is to get that, answer any questions you might have about what we're trying to do, and to hopefully achieve that franchise agreement so that we can begin deploying services.
Well, this commission always tries to work with these franchise agreements, and we definitely need you in south part of Mobile County. We get a lot of phone calls of people that do not have service, and I'm actually one of them. So you're a welcome site to the south part of Mobile County.
Thank you.
What areas are you looking at to expand this fiber optic?
So the way our program works, it's a crowdsource model. We will gauge the interest of the residents in a given area. Once we get enough density for there to be an economic case for us to build it, then we will design and build that area. I wish I could tell you that we'd build every square inch of the county. It's just not economically feasible, unfortunately, to do that.
So there has to be a minimum density of population in that area to
We
consider it.
We look at 3 things, and density is one of those. How many houses per foot, per cable foot, per mile of available houses to take the service. We look at distance to existing backbone fiber, and we have a fair amount of that, and are planning to build a lot more. And then we look at demand. If the demand is high enough and there's any density at all, that demand can overcome, the distance to the fiber. So it really becomes the residents' decision where we build first, second, third, and so on. We know there are areas based on our history that we will get those 3Ds satisfied, and those likely will go first. I can't tell you today where those are. I've not seen any data on that. But in the other areas, it's our desire that they come along and meet those hurdles so that we can build it.
Well, like Commissioner Carl, we have a lot of areas in the western part of the county that also don't have service. So I'm glad to see this expansion effort happening, and we certainly want to be supportive of that. My understanding, though, is that this is a non-exclusive franchise agreement.
As required by federal law.
Yeah,
It's
it's a
required,
non-exclusive.
right.
That is correct.
But we're glad you're making this leap. So thank you for being
Thank you.
here.
Any other questions?
Thank you. Dina?
Commissioners, you have a presentation on investment policy from Richard Pingley of PFN.
Okay.
Okay. Well, good morning, and thank you, everyone. My name is Richard Pingley. I'm a director with PFM. I've got a couple other folks on with me. Kyle Jones, who is the head of our portfolio strategies group, is also on, as well as Josh McCoy, who I'm sure you all have talked to before as the county's financial advisor. So today we're going to give you an update on the work that we started at the end of last year to review the county's investment program. And I know you received a lot of this information, so we'll really just focus in on kind of the highlights. The county, or much of this information was presented to the investment team in November of last year. There were really three significant areas that popped out as areas for improvement. One was to update and revise the investment policy to make it consistent with state code. The second was to restructure the portfolio so that you were better balancing your short-term investments versus your long-term investments. And as we'll see in a second here, long-term in the cash sort of reserve space really only means out 1 or 2 years. So somewhat longer, but not long-term. And then the third was several things to increase the transparency and general oversight and management of the investment program. So those are kind of the three main things that came out of the analysis. We have provided a draft of the policy, and I know some of you have already provided some comments about a couple of changes here and there, but these changes would incorporate a lot of kind of national best practices, would bring it into alignment with Alabama Code 118121, and do some other things for the overall program. The implementation of these changes, particularly these policy changes, would require an elimination or liquidation of some of the securities in the portfolio. Fortunately, in the current market with interest rates so low, those securities have increased in value, would be at a gain when we last looked at those market values. So this would be a good time to do that restructuring based on that. In terms of the kind of operational restructuring recommendations we've made, we've already, at the direction of the county, talked to some of your existing banking partners, and they're able to step in to serve as a third-party custodian. In fact, both of them are very active in this area, very good at it, both locally, regionally within the South, and even nationally in the case of regions. So Overall, all of these sort of recommendations taken together would, reduce overall costs and improve the, transparency and ease of oversight for the program. So just a brief recap, we started out with sort of this 10-step development plan, interviewing staff, getting a handle around what the existing investment program looks like. We spent a lot of time analyzing the cash flows for each different fund and account, looking at all the different types of existing investments that you have, kind of the processes that you have in place. We looked at state code. We went out, we actually reached out to some of the other counties in the state as well. All of this sort of fed into developing our set of recommendations, which are largely encoded in the policy, the draft policy that we've provided to you. So just to dig a little deeper into those kind of three areas that we identified for improvement, the observations we had was that in terms of the policy had a broader list of investments, and Kyle will talk about this in a second here, than what state code permits. Generally, state code really restricts you to things that are guaranteed by the U.S. government, and maybe kind of some other similar types of investments, whereas the existing policy was broader and looked at including other investments like federal agencies, which, while they are classed as government securities, aren't necessarily fully explicitly backed by the U.S. government. And as I mentioned before, the portion of the portfolio that would fall in that category on a par value basis was $71 million as of April that would need to be liquidated to conform to code. In terms of portfolio structure, the cash flow analysis we did indicated that a lot more assets were being kept very short term than was necessary for your annual expenditures. So, given the many different funds and different accounts, we often see that ends up being the case. But by kind of looking at things from an investment point of view, there are better ways, we think, to aggregate the funds to allow for more efficient management from an investment perspective. And that will translate into higher expected returns. You're not sort of swinging for the fences when you're investing kind of these sort of safe assets as a local government, but you are trying to sort of work against the erosive forces of inflation. So we think better kind of cash flow management and sort of a different approach would lead to the ability to better use the curve to your advantage. And in terms of operational structure, safekeeping for your funds, where your funds are held, your investment advisor, brokerage for securities, all appear to be sort of within the same entity for a portion of your assets. And there's nothing sort of wrong with that. That's very common in the retail market for individuals, let's say. But as an institutional investor, as a large institutional investor, given the size of your assets, that really isn't a best practice. GFOA, Government Finance Officers Association, advises that you use an independent third-party custodian to actually hold your assets, and look to different processes for how you sort of structure your investment program. We'll talk about that in a second. In terms of management and oversight, there were a number of things that are embodied in policy that we saw. One, the policy didn't have sort of a stated market standard type of benchmark, which we think is important in the county's policy. It communicates not only internally to sort of investment staff and finance staff, what the measurement for risk and return should be, but it also communicates out to the public clearly, this is the way you should look at our quarterly performance, regular performance for the portfolio. We did see competitive bidding process. GFOA best practices to have 3 bids per security with some caveats for things like direct purchases of some instruments. There was limited support for the short-term investment activity for staff. We really think that could be beefed up to support the selection of individual kind of short-term investments throughout the course of the year. And we didn't see sort of a process of kind of this regular strategy and performance reporting on sort of a quarterly and regular basis. We think that could be sort of made more robust to conform with best practices of local governments. So with that, I'll switch over to Kyle, talk a little bit about that.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Richard. And so we've worked with the county and put together overviews of the county's portfolio to have an idea of how it's positioned, and so that when we're thinking about these recommendations, they can be viewed within the context of the county's current portfolio. Now, what we provided here is an overview. In the upper right-hand corner, we kind of highlighted, I think, the 2 major, we think, value-added recommendations that we're making here. In the upper right-hand corner, you see the sector allocation. We've highlighted that kind of 14% of the portfolio that's not currently compliant with our understanding of applicable statutes for the county. We went back in time and we thought about it. We started this project, I think, back in September. There was around 31% of the portfolio that wasn't compliant. So I think that some of the steps have already been taken as maturities are rolling off of the portfolio, that the reinvestments of those proceeds have been in sectors that are considered compliant there. So again, I think that's taking care of about half of the process there. Again, we're recommending that we complete the process to bring the portfolio in line. As Richard alluded to, the timing of it makes sense, given the rallying rates there and the unrealized gains that generally exist in the portfolio. The other part will be what we're showing in the lower right-hand corner, that about 80% of the portfolio matures under a year. So the cash flow analysis that was done, going back in time, looking at uses of proceeds, expectations going forward, seems to suggest that the critical mass of that, or a large portion of that, could be invested further along the curve, while the absolute level of rates is relatively low at this point. The curve is still positively sloped. So we start to think about that idea of opportunity costs. So the idea of, in this environment, the need to find interest income and kind of eke out those additional dollars of income is going to be more important here over the next several years in this low rate environment than it probably was historically. So again, our analysis, our cash flow analysis seems to indicate that there are funds that could be invested further out along the curve. We do have some recommendations on potential sizing, if you will, to invest further out along the curve, take advantage of the incremental income that is available even at these historically low levels here. Again, that's somewhat agnostic to that. If we go to the next slide, we pulled together a comparison of the code. And the way we pulled this slide together, that top gray section are sectors that are permitted by code, and the commitments that we were able to find that are included in the county's current investment policy. So those are the sectors that we agree with, we think should be there, and they make sense. That next section, that kind of yellow shaded section, are sectors like municipals, commercial paper, bankruptcy acceptance that are included in the investment policy, and that are in a different way permitted by state code. So, commercial paper needs to be secured by code. That's not currently how it's represented in the policy, same with bankruptcy acceptance. Municipals, pre-refunded municipals are included by code. But again, that additional qualifier is not included in the county's current policy. So the idea would be to clarify and to bring those sectors in line. As Richard alluded to there on the bottom, things like federal instrumentalities and government-sponsored enterprises, so your Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, those guys, that while they are high-quality sectors that we would typically deploy in portfolios, they're simply not permitted by state code. So that's the idea here, is that those sectors in the recommended policy remove those sectors since they're not permitted by applicable state code there. So I'll slow down for a minute there, and I'll pause. Are there any questions from the group? I want to make sure I'm not speeding through anything.
What is the question about local government investment pool? Is that just not clear in state code?
Hey, he wants to know, she wants to know, Commissioner Hudson wants to know what the question was about the local government investment pool. Was that something that's just not clear in the code?
Yeah, we sort of put that there because it isn't explicitly stated as an investment option in the code. But generally what we see in other state statutes, there really isn't a specification for a local government investment pool. It usually is, we'll say something under a Joint Powers Act or different local governments can come together to invest based on, this particular section of the code. So that's why we said that there wasn't anything specifically under that section of the code, but that doesn't mean that pooling of some sort is not allowed.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Okay. So I will sort of focus in on the cash flow analysis that we performed. As I mentioned, we went through and looked at all of the different funds and went through with the goal of seeing really what can be aggregated from an investment point of view. As a general matter, the more you can aggregate funds, when one fund is down, another one is up, and vice versa, and overall it creates more stable balances that are available for investing. It's kind of one of the four or five basic tools that we use in cash flow or cash reserve investment. So we spent some time working with staff to work through and identify the different buckets of funds that could be aggregated for investment purposes, and came up with really two major sets of funds that could be aggregated. Then we went back and looked at sort of the historical seasonality patterns, growth patterns, kind of discussed what the expenditure pattern would look like for those different funds, and then used that to create a segmentation of the assets, or tiering, or segmentation, or bucketing, kind of the different terms we use. And there are three basic buckets to use for management for investment purposes. One would be immediate liquidity. So those are funds that need to be kept in daily liquid vehicles, things like money market funds kept in a money market account, at the bank. The second sort of portfolio or segment of the portfolio are what we've identified here as kind of the liquidity reserve. Those tend to be laddered out maturities, more corresponding to maybe known expenditures that are coming up in the next month, 2 months, 3 months, etc., going out to a full year. And then the third segment is what we call the core portfolio. And these are the assets that are most at risk of being eroded by the effects of inflation. So they're assets you're not expecting to spend immediately, but you could need them at some time here in the future. Those balances tend to be fairly stable, as you see on the screen here, that sort of blue section that we're identifying. And that's what can be taken and invested out a little further on the curve. So here, when we aggregate kind of those two main buckets that we identified, one is about 90 million, the other is about 30 or 40 million. The total is 130 million. Currently, you have about 26 million that's sort of invested as this, kind of more as your core longer term balance. So there's quite a bit of room to increase that size with potentially, significant expected benefit. We think that this sort of retweaking of your strategy and kind of readjustment would help to offset the sort of impact of having a smaller set of investments to invest in. So you're investing more along your liquidity needs, which is more of a best practice, and then sort of turning away from investing in these things that are really outside of state code. I'll sort of jump to the next slide. The slide I skipped over really just sort of incorporates that visual idea using kind of the concrete terms or concrete numbers based on your 430 snapshot of your 430 balances. And Kyle,
and then here we were just going to kind of highlight, this is focused largely on that core portfolio, that the blue section of the earlier slide, those funds that include the cash flow analysis have been identified as funds that we don't anticipate needing, or that the county will anticipate needing throughout the course of any given kind of fiscal year. And we thought we showed the benefit of extending duration, if you will. So you see 4 different lines here, lines that represent benchmarks that are very, very commonly used for this portion of the municipal entities portfolio. The bottom part is that 3-month T-bill, very, very short duration. The next line is 1-year treasury, so adding a little bit of duration. It's going to be a little bit further than a little bit longer than how it's currently the duration is currently positioned. You see that 1 to 3 year, which is going to be a little bit longer there, and then the 1 to 5 year taking advantage of the 5-year under part of the curve. So with each of them, you see that duration. We have the duration in the parentheses next to each benchmark name in the legend. It gets a little bit longer, so that would represent the portfolio being invested a little further along the yield curve in aggregate. And you see that benefit. We went back over the past 10 years, and I think it's important to think about the context of the yield curve environment over the past 10 years, largely characterized by very, very low rates, very similar to the environment that we found ourselves in now. And during that period, the time where most entities were looking to grow portfolios, looking for additional interest, income, and earnings in portfolios, the longer duration part of the portfolio has really seen that additional growth. So the way you read this on the right-hand side, going from a 3-month T-bill, very similar to a cash benchmark, to a 1-year treasury, around additional 4.6 million of portfolio growth over that 10-year period. From there, building upon that, a 1 to 3 year treasury type of portfolio made sense. An additional $6+ million, and then an additional $8 million going from there to just a baseline 1 to 5 year portfolio. So again, I think that this highlights the opportunity cost, if you will, or how to quantify the benefit over the past decade here of taking the part of the portfolio that's been identified as what I'll call the growth portion of the portfolio and investing it in a manner that more closely aligns with the cash flow expectations, or some of the lack of cash flow expectations, if you will, in that portion of the county's overall portfolio.
Okay. I mentioned that we had some recommendations surrounding the sort of operational structure of the portfolio. What we show up on the screen now is an example of what that might look like, kind of in a graphic format. I'll start down here with the choice of an independent third-party custodian. So a third-party custodian would actually hold the county's assets. You would separately contract with that entity. Only the county would be able to move cash in and out of that account. You would have control over that account, sort of official, books and records for the county and its assets. What we've identified as number 2 is where you are looking to actually effect transactions, purchase securities. All of that will be done on a competitive basis, again, along with best practices. Going out and getting at least 3 bids for each security purchase. They would be bid to a wide group of different broker dealers. We show as number 3 here. No single broker or dealer is going to have the best pricing on every single security all of the time. So the sort of the best approach really is to cast as wide a net as possible to ensure that you're getting the best price on each and every single transaction. In the case of PFM, using us as an example, our approved broker dealer list is greater than 50-something different names. Covers all the primary dealers, the major super regional dealers, minority women-owned firm, veteran service disabled firms, etc. Very broad net, again, so that you're getting the best pricing on every single security. When a security transaction has been identified and a winner selected through a competitive bid, then that entity, the winning broker dealer, then settles the transaction with your custody bank on what's known as a delivery versus payment basis. So the transaction occurs between that entity and your custody bank in a way that protects your assets. I mentioned the delivery versus payment process. That means that cash or securities are always in your account at one time or the other. You never have a situation where cash is sort of in transit going to the bank and you're waiting for the security to come. That all happens on a simultaneous basis as another sort of protective measure for the county. We think this process sort of gives a lot of transparency. It promotes looking to achieve the best pricing on each and every transaction. Creates a lot of security for the county. So I'll sort of step through. We included in the sort of the printed material a couple other things. We showed actually sort of an example from actually an escrow purchase that PFM had done for the county. I guess this is probably a couple years now, but it's sort of a small example showing that even for a small purchase of 3 or 4 treasury securities, bidding for across a group of different dealers resulted in nearly 8,000 of savings on a single transaction. You sort of take that and multiply that by hundreds and hundreds of transactions per year, and you can see the benefit of that sort of adds up. You also want to make sure you have some type of paper trail of your bidding activity. Printed material, we showed an example of sort of a typical trade ticket that would show sort of evidence of here Merrill Lynch has won this treasury security trade, and then there's comps for other non-winning broker dealers that also bid on that. And for every trade, you have sort of this very nice audit trail of this bidding activity. We talked about the reporting regime and the kinds of things that would evidence sort of a kind of more robust and more transparent reporting. Things like having sort of a monthly investment policy compliance report, having quarterly reports that show performance and show communicating performance in several different ways. Also talk to past strategy and future strategy. Having an annual sort of investment program report given to the commission to allow another sort of point to overview the program and see how the performance is going and how the what the strategy is going forward. So I will sort of pause there that the Fed in its last forecast indicated that it planned or it saw that rates would be held down at zero, Fed funds rate would be held down at zero through the end of 2022. What that means is that all short-term rates, pretty much everything that the county invests in is going to be the zero, near zero range, and you've already seen that in sort of your T-bill yields, CD offerings. All of those yields are, basically back down into teens. What we saw, going back to the first few years after the credit crisis in 08 and 09. So it's low. It's the answer. Very low.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Richard, for your presentation. Again, thank you for your hard work. I know it was a big task and hard undertaking. We appreciate it.
No, thank you. We appreciate the work.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.
All right.
All right.
Oh, okay.
Slip out.
Okay.
I didn't know we had all this booked up.
Okay, so, okay. Well, I'd like to take the opportunity to say thank you to our finance director, Dana Foster Allen, and her staff. I know that Dana has been working on this a long time, the idea that we really needed to take a look at this investment strategy that we have and restructure that so that it would be more effective for the county, it would be more transparent, there would be more accountability. And I would just say kudos to her and to her staff and everyone who has been involved in getting us to this point. I think this is a great restructuring program. I support it 100%. Thank you.
I would also like to just give kudos to the investment committee, and that is Chanita Thomas, Angela Vreca, Glenn Hodge, and Phil Benson.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any other speakers, Dina?
There are no other speakers.
Okay. Mr. Hodge?
Number 1, consider approving the minutes of the regular meeting of June 8, 2020. Number 2, consider approving a list of claims. Number 3, consider amending the 2019 capital improvement plan to add project and the estimated cost as follows: $500,000, Miracle Road Construction and CEI. This amendment creates project Miracle Road Construction and CEI and allocates $500,000 from capital improvement plan and decreases the CIP to 2019-003 District 3 unnamed projects by $500,000. Number 4, consider adopting a resolution authorizing requests of the Sheriff's Office to dispose of certain items. Number 5, consider approving application for a restaurant retail liquor license of River Crew LLC. Number 6, consider adopting a sole source resolution authorizing the renewal of software maintenance contract with Environmental Systems Research Institute in the amount of $51,830.41 for the Revenue Commissioner's Office. This will be paid from a reappraisal account. Number 7, consider approving the appointment of Donnie Brown to the Board of Trustees of the Mobile Sports Authority for a 3-year term, expiring July 9, 2023, replacing Harry Satterwhite, and reappointment of Doug Harwell for a 3-year term which expires May 11, 2023. Number 8, consider assigning Architect Group, Inc. For Bay Hayes building renovations. Work to consist of plan development, bidding, and project administration associated with renovation of ADA upgrades for a proposed fee in the amount of $50,000. Number 9, consider approving change order number 1 with Avalon Glass for a quote for COVID-19 protective measures implemented. Change will increase the contract in the amount of $998.78. The new contract total will be $105,453.78. Number 10, consider authorizing the advertise for bids project African Town Heritage House. Number 11, consider approving.
I want to hold over 10 until the 27th,
Hold
until
over
the July
10.
27th agenda.
Okay. Number 11, consider approving investment purchases with the county funds by the treasurer for June 2020. Number 12, consider approving the purchase of 2 regionally integrated camera systems through GSA contract by the Sheriff's Office to pay from HITDA grant and drug forfeiture funds. Number 13, consider rescinding the County Commission's action in June 8, 2020, agenda item number 2, approving the application of Shriji One LLC for the transfer of off-premise retail table wine license for Chevron Food Mark. The transfer application, which included retail beer and retail table wine, was approved in error as a table wine license because there was no previous table wine license to be transferred. Number 14, consider approving new application of Shriji One LLC for off-premise retail table wine license for Chevron Food Mark. Number 15, consider approving contract with United Way of Southwest Alabama in the amount of $50,000. Funds will be used for its community crisis funds from District 1 funds.
Would you add the COVID Community Crisis Fund?
Yes, ma'am. Okay. Number 16, consider amending annual contract with Family Counseling Center of Mobile, Inc. to provide additional funds in the amount of $17,000. Funds will be used to purchase data management software to track the usage of nonprofit resources during the COVID-19 response and staff from District 1 funds. Number 17, consider consider approving services agreement and access agreement with employment screening services to provide background screening services for both probate court and the License Commission. Number 18, consider amending annual contract with the History Museum of Mobile Board, Inc. to provide additional funds in the amount of $50,000. Funds will be used for the Clotilda exhibit from District 1 funds.
Question. Will there be anything displayed at the History Museum here in Mobile? I was just wondering what the plans were.
So the Africatown Heritage House that we're constructing, that's going to be the venue where the exhibit is going to be held, but the museum is going to run Africatown Heritage House as long as those Clotilda artifacts are in there. And we're thinking probably 3 years or 4 years, whenever the Welcome Center is built. But this will, the Heritage House is going to be a quicker construction so that they can get in there and get that done. But yeah, there won't be, the exhibit is going to be done by the museum and managed and operated at that site.
Okay, thank you.
Number 19, consider authorizing advertisement for requests for qualifications for engineering and design of the extensive affluent force main from the Biela Battery Wastewater Treatment Facility. Funding for this project is provided by the Restore Act through Alabama Department of Conservation and Natural Resources. Number 20, consider holding a public hearing to consider the recommendation from the Small Business Relief Grant Fund Committee to award grant to 6 local businesses that are experiencing financial hardship with the COVID-19 public health crisis located within Mobile County, Alabama, for the purpose of promoting the economic and industrial development of the county in accordance with Amendment Number 772 of the Constitution of Alabama. 21, consider awarding the grant funds to the following 6 businesses in the following amounts that are experiencing financial hardships with COVID-19 public health crisis within Mobile County for the purpose of promoting the economic and industrial development of the county in accordance with the Amendment Number 772 of the Constitution of Alabama. Number 22, consider approving annual service agreement with Business Systems and Consultants, Inc. for the maintenance of the microfilm scanner and reader printer for the Records Division of Probate Court. 23, consider authorizing letter of request to ADCNR to amend the scope and budget of the Mobile County Blueway Trail Development Grant Award to include funds for marketing strategy, Funding for this project is provided by the Restore Act through Alabama Department of Conservation and Natural Resources. 24, consider awarding contract to McNally Land Design to provide professional planning and engineering services for Mobile County Blueway Trail Development Project. Authorize proceeding with Phase 1A of plan development. 20.
Question, how will this be conducted to do the planning services? Will this be through interviews and input with involved parties, with commissioners?
It'll be a fairly involved process of, and I'm going to delay long enough for hopefully Tina to come in and explain it further, but there is significant effort coming involved to evaluate all the potential blueways that we have and help direct where the effort goes, the biggest bang for the buck, so to speak, so that we're looking at what the best opportunities are and how to develop that. And there is significant effort for public engagement, and will eventually end up, not in this phase, but with design and construction funds in a future phase.
Anything to add?
One of the challenges we're facing is switching to virtual and public engagement, so more to come on.
Okay. So this will be a process with a lot of input, a lot of engagement, and really it will affect all throughout the county. It'll be a countywide.
Absolutely a countywide effort.
Okay. Okay.
And I know Tina and I have talked about to make sure that we pull in those groups that have their own fledgling blueway. I shouldn't say fledglings, that are on the drawing board, and pull them all in so that we touch everybody from the north end down the peninsula and Africatown and all of those different groups,
Okay.
all the way up to Escatawpa.
Absolutely. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Number 25, consider authorizing extending the term of the subrecipient agreement with Family Counseling Center of Mobile, Inc., doing business as Lifeline Counseling Services from July 31st, 2020 to July 31st, 2021. The original agreement was for an amount of up to $10,000 of the Community Development Block Grant, funds to provide home buyer counseling through a program known as Consumer Credit Counseling Services of Mobile. 26, consider authorizing subrecipient agreement with Ozanam Charitable Pharmacy, Inc. for the term of August 1st, 2020 to July 31st, 2021, in the amount of up to $35,000 of Community Development Block Grant, funds to provide prescription drug assistance. 27, consider authorizing subrecipient agreement with the Child Advocacy Center, Inc. for the term of August 1st, 2020 to July 31st, 2021, in the amount of up to $25,000 of Community Development Block Grant, funds to provide services to child abuse victims. 28, consider authorizing subrecipient agreement with South Alabama Regional Planning Commission for the term of August 1st, 2020 to July 31st, 2021, in the amount of up to $10,000 of Community Development Block Grant, funds for the grant Grand Bay Cell Senior Center Home Delivered Meals Program. 29, consider authorizing subrecipient agreement with Siems Women's Club and Inc. for the term of August 1st, 2020 to July 31st, 2021, in the amount of up to $50,000 of Community Development Block Grant for funds for staff costs for the Siems Senior Center. 30, consider authorizing subrecipient agreement with Legal Services Alabama, Inc. for the term of August 1st, 2020 to July 31st, 2021, in the amount of up to $50,000 of Community Development Block Grant funds to provide civil legal assistance to a homeless prevention project. Number 31, consider authorizing subrecipient agreement with Penelope House Family Violence Center, Inc. for the term of August 1st, 2020 to July 31st, 2021, in the amount of up to $10,000 of Community Development Block Grant funds to provide funds for a domestic violence victims advocacy project. Number 32, consider authorizing subrecipient agreement with Family Counseling Center of Mobile, Inc., doing business as Lifelines Counseling Services for the term of August 1st, 2020 to July 31st, 2021, in the amount of up to $5,000 of community development block grant funds to provide services for rape victims through a program known as Rape Crisis Center. Number 33, consider approving appropriation of up to $11,000 for renovations to the Domestic Relations Court payment window located in an atrium adjacent to the multipurpose room to be paid from 116 funds.
I'm just curious, since this is on our building, on our funds, why is this an appropriation? Aren't we doing this just in the normal course of business? I'm just curious, I don't.
Well, we could, Dana, the question arose, what was the source of the funds? And I spoke with the finance director, it was her suggestion, but I will defer that to the finance director as to a different source of it, if that's appropriate. I don't know.
Okay, I didn't realize it was an appropriation when I first, when
And
Jay
that may
first
not have
called
been
me. I
clear
thought
in
it
our
was just that we were
conversation.
doing the work. So, yeah, I guess it would be.
It's not an appropriation because it's our building that we're doing the
That
work.
may be my poor word choice. We're just trying to figure out the allocation of where the money would come.
Yeah, I thought we were.
Tyler Martin
yeah.
indicates it can be done in-house, so
Yeah.
that may be my, again, poor word choice on
Would
the
it, would
wording.
it be handled as a purchase order?
No,
Or
it would just be a
as
regular.
part of the budget for the,
Right. I think
facilities?
appropriation is the wrong term. It should be approving funding of up to $11,000 for renovation. It's going to be done in-house, so
Correct.
it wouldn't be an appropriation contract with them. I think the wording is wrong. It's not an appropriation.
do we need to identify the source funding?
The source is in here, the 116 fund,
Okay, to be paid, I got you.
which is the
We'll
capital
change the
improvement
wording
fund.
for the next meeting. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Number 34, consider approving intergovernmental agreement between the City of Mobile and Mobile County for the 13th Judicial Court System's use of the Civic Center until December 31st, 2020.
I think we need to add, why. Then they need to meet, it's COVID related and whatever. It just needs to say a little bit more about why we're doing it.
Okay.
Because I guess if there's any expense involved, then that could be reimbursed. It's reimbursable expenses.
Two currently identified expenses are the cost of court security, which we're told by Judge Young Peter is approximately $1,500 to $2,000 a month for the additional officers, and of course the cost of the cleaning of the facility, which is all the city wants. We have a letter from Judge Young Peter will be paid for by the 13th Judicial Circuit's fund. We'll add the wording per Commissioner Lovegood's suggestion.
Good.
Number 35, consider approving a construction right-of-way use and franchise agreement with Telepac Networks, Inc., an affiliate doing business as C-Spire for Mobile County rights of way. 36, consider approving amendment of professional services agreement with Everyday IT, Inc., also known as IT3SI, to make provisions for additional services related to the migration from the current payroll system, PETS, to Central Square, and further providing for a change in the payment structure and hourly rate, subject to final legal review. 37, consider authorizing advertising for public hearing to be held on August 20th, 2020, at the regular scheduled commission conference to receive comments from the public relating to the commission providing host community acceptance of the proposed modifications to the existing permitted landfill facility of Echo South Services of Mobile LLC in Axis, Alabama. Number 38, Judge Davis has requested that we vote on this today due to the fact that the election is next Tuesday. Number 38, consider approving event space rental agreement with Abba Shrine Temple for the use as a polling site on July 14, 2020 for the sum of $900. Increased rent results from COVID-19 requirements.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Number 39, consider approving contract with Lighthouse Community Development Corporation in the amount of $4,322.23. Funds will be used to provide lighting for the community park from District 3 funds. Number 40, consider approving lease agreement with Bishop State College for space in the Theodore Oaks Shopping Center for a term of 3 years beginning on August 1st, 2020 and ending July 31st, 2023, and authorize Commission President to execute all documents necessary.
Bishop State Community College.
Excuse me.
Community College. It's a
Oh.
full name.
Community College, okay. Number 41, consider authorizing minor amendment to the 2020 action plan to reallocate $60,000 Cdbg funds from Home Emergency Repair Assistance Program, $800 to the Summer Youth Programs, $800 to the Child Abuse Victims Assistance, $2,100 to the Homeless Prevention Legal Assistance, $1,200 to the Prescription Drugs Assistance, $1,300 to the Domestic Violence Victims Advocacy, $1,700 to Home Delivered Meals for Seniors, $1,000 to the Senior Service Activities, and $1,100 to the Rape Victim Service Provider Assistance, and $50,000 to the East Elm Street Improvements. Number 42, consider adopting resolution authorizing requests of the Metro Jail to dispose of certain items from fixed assets. 43.
Question, just a minute, going back to 41, were these were surplus funds that were not used in the home repair assistance? Is Ms. Nair?
These are no surplus funds, we're simply moving some money from one project, which is the home repair project, to these various public service projects, and that's simply to cover staff costs.
Right, but the home repair, it was obviously not needed in that line item.
We have quite a bit of money in that line item, and I think we can.
Right, so surplus was not the right word. It was money that was not needed for that function.
Not needed at the moment.
Okay, good, thank you.
And number 43, consider taking the following actions on bids. And that's it.
Okay. Mr. Kegley, I guess you get to talk now.
I'm up. Very good. Good morning, Commissioners. Item number 1, recommend adopting a resolution consenting to the annexation of a portion of Radcliffe Road that's bounded by territories annexed by the city of Saraland. Item 2, recommend awarding the bid for West Lake Road North to John G. Walton for their low bid. Item 3, recommend authorizing acquisition of the properties listed. Item number 4, recommend authorizing to advertise and receive bids for our roundabout at Dawes Road and Jeff Hamilton Road, one of our 2012 pay-as-you-go projects. Item 5, recommend approving supplemental agreement number 1 with Southern Land Development on our 2014-307 project. That would decrease the contract by a little over $9,000, and also we need to increase the contract time by 10 additional working days to compensate the contractor for unseen road bed undercutting work. Item 6, recommend approving supplemental agreement number 3 with Hosey Weaver on our Paget Switch Road resurfacing project, thereby decreasing the contract by a little over $3,000. Item 7, recommend approving supplemental agreement number 1 with Mobile Asphalt on our Pritchard Streets resurfacing project, one of our 2018 pay-as-go projects. Item 8, recommend approving right-of-way agreement for Tract 2 on our Swedetown Road project. Item 9, recommend approving right-of-way agreement for Tract 12 on the McDonald Road project. Item 10, recommend approving right-of-way agreement on Tract 11 on our Mcdavid Road project. Item 11, recommend assigning a contract for professional consultant services for our Jeremiah Denton Airport to Michael Baker International Incorporated This will be a 5-year contract, Commissioners, for the work that we anticipate over the next 5 years at the Jeremiah Denton Airport. Item 12, recommend approving preliminary and final plat of Crawford Estates. That is in Commission District 2. Also approving preliminary and final plat of JP subdivision. That is also in District 2. And approving preliminary and final plat of Jeff Hamilton Estates, a re-subdivision of Lot 3, Block B. The first edition of Dawes Acres, and that is in Commission District 3. Commissioners, item 13 is a consider item. Consider waiving section 4.46 and section 7.1 of the subdivision regulations and approving the preliminary and final plat of Darrell Watkins Estate. That is in Commission District 3. And Commissioner, here we're basically taking 2 lots and we're combining them into 1 lot. So we did not have any objection to this waiver at all. Item 14, recommend approving project to Herbicide and Re-Mulch the Siems playground. Estimated cost a little over $8,000. And item 15, Commissioner, is also a consider item. Consider waiving section 4.21 of the subdivision regs and 4.42 and section 4.46 of the subdivision regulations and approving the preliminary and final plat of Simon subdivision. Commissioners, here, this is a small little site around a cell tower that is a considerable distance away from a little unimproved dirt road that they're currently gaining access to their site along an existing ingress-egress easement. Cell tower probably has 1 or 2 vehicles a week. I mean, it's just very, very minor. We had no problem with that waiver at all. We recommend it. And that's it.
Okay. Anything else from anybody? Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much, and we'll see you same time, same place, Monday morning.